Click. Good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you from the gun store here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are on radio on KSHP 1400 AM, as you know, and on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Irwin. We put up new shows every Tuesday evening, and this will be the one from 12:15, or the date 12:15. Tonight's guests are defense attorney William Gamage and firearms instructor Maggie Mordaunt. Maggie's been with us before, as has Bill, but I'm going to ask the two of them to give a little bit of their background, if they would, for firearms and issues related to the show. Bill, if you'd like to start off.
Sure. I'm a local Las Vegas attorney. I do criminal defense work. I also defend people who may have been in some sort of a gun incident. I've handled extensive civil work. I do appellate work. Prior to becoming an attorney, I was a law enforcement officer for over a decade and a firearms instructor.
Yeah, making Bill one of the very best guys to have on the show, having been a firearms instructor, which is how we actually met, and doing police academies and training years ago, and a law enforcement officer, and now an attorney. He's got all the answers if you ask him. And Maggie, good evening again.
Good evening again. I am Maggie Mordaunt. I'm the owner of Homeland Personal Protection and ccwmaggie.com. I have a defense training company. I also teach the Combat Citizen Workshop Intense CCW class. And I live here in Henderson, and I also teach a ladies class once a month at the gun store. It is a lead-free range. It's pretty awesome. I like the fact that it's a healthy range. I'm kind of a health nut, so that is awesome for me. Thank you, Bob.
So far, so good.
Yes, sir.
Nobody dying of lead poisoning.
No, nobody feels sick when they leave.
Anyway, we are here every week. You can send in, if you like, questions or comments to the show. We don't do live call-ins anymore because of the short time span we've got. But if you send a question or comment to bob@firedupmail.com, we will get it, and I will forward it to the attorney or to Maggie or to whoever is appropriate to answer your question. So we do answer all the questions that come in. Everybody, we will send you back an answer by email. We don't ignore anybody. This show is about guns, politics related thereto, and self-defense issues. And as you all know, there are several hundred defensive firearms use incidents every week in the United States. Most of them are not covered by the mainstream media. So we always start out with a few of those for our listeners' education. A little bit later on, we're going to talk some political issues and gun laws and things that are coming up. I always start out with a few cases of self-defense for your information and education. Some of them are good, some are bad, some are really dumb. But the reason I pick out certain cases is because the educational value to people that have a gun in their house or carry concealed weapons, not to second guess the individuals that were involved. And I want everybody to understand that. I rarely, if ever, use the names of the individuals involved, because what I'm trying to do is use what happened to them as a teaching tool to what they should have done, what they could have done, what was right, what was wrong. And that way, if we don't use their names, they don't get in trouble over it. And we don't get in trouble over it. This is from Fox 19 News in Cincinnati, Ohio, on the 11th of this month. A robbery victim shot back by shooting and killing a 16-year-old assailant in Evanston, just outside of Cincinnati. Officers responded to a home on Jonathan Avenue at 11:30 p.m. after receiving a report of a shooting. Police arrived. They determined the armed robber had held up one of two contractors who were remodeling a home. This will sound like a story we did 2 weeks ago. It's almost the exact same thing. The victim walked outside to get some equipment out of his van. He found himself staring at two guys, one who was pointing a gun at him, and asked him to turn over his wallet at gunpoint. The second contractor came to the front door and saw what was occurring. The gunman saw him, motioned him out, and tried to rob him of his wallet too. But that victim, who told police he had a permit to carry concealed, pulled out a firearm instead. The robbery suspect fired several shots at the armed victim first. As soon as he pulled the gun, the bad guy fired at him. He fired back, striking the suspect several times. The suspect was actually pronounced dead at the scene by the arriving detectives and ambulance crew. They did confirm, the detectives confirmed the contractor had a permit to carry concealed firearm. They questioned and released him, and no charges are being filed. Really a perfect shooting. You cannot, I see no problem with this. He pulled a gun. He didn't even fire until the guy fired at him.
Right.
Tactically, I'm not sure how sound that is, but it's nice. The guy's got a gun pointed at you.
Yeah.
Letting him fire first is,
he might have been shocked at the fact that it was a 16-year-old.
Could have been.
Maybe he was like, well, maybe it's fake. I have to say that that's probably, it's scary if you have to use a firearm to stop someone as a threat, and especially when it's force on force. And the scarier thing here for me personally is, as a mother, it's a 16-year-old child.
Well, and that may well come up. And
Yeah.
Fortunately for our armed victim, the guy did fire at him.
Yeah.
So, but you're still very likely going to hear the story. My son was turning himself around. He was trying to get out of the gang or whatever is going on here.
Yeah.
The one we did 2 weeks ago or last week was an unarmed home contractor who hid, and then he jumped the guy that had the gun. Really gutsy instead of waiting for the police, but it's a lot safer if you have your own gun when you're going to a gunfight.
Oh, yeah.
This turns out to be a good shooting.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be no criminal aspects over it, and the civil should be dismissed if
Most
that
definitely.
comes. This is from KHOU TV. This is in Houston, Texas. Again, a suspect was shot by a homeowner around 9 p.m. on a home invasion in Northeast Harris County. According to the county sheriff's office, the incident happened at a home in the 16,000 block of Spinnaker. If you happen to know where that is, being from the area. An unknown suspect broke into an occupied home. The homeowner, alerted by the noise, grabbed his gun. This is 9 o'clock at night again. He confronted the suspect and shot the guy, the intruder, twice. When deputies arrived at the scene, the suspect was secured and taken to the hospital, where he was reported to be in serious but stable condition. The homeowner was not hurt during the incident, and no charges are expected. Another in a really long series of why you should keep a firearm in your home. We have so many home invasions. I go through the report sometimes looking for something that isn't a home invasion.
Yeah.
Because we are now the soft targets. Another crime was thwarted because the homeowner had the gun available. There's another one of these a little bit later that's not quite as toasty clean as this one. I want to remind you that we do take questions and comments at bob@firedupmail.com. And if you like us on Facebook or friend us on Facebook, that would be nice also. If you would like to promote your product or service by advertising on Fired Up, like if you have a shooting school and you want to mention that you teach people at it, we charge for that service. But we'd be happy to promote your product. If you want to give me a jingle at that same bob@firedupmail, we'll tell you what's available and what we can do for you with our bevy of listeners. This is from the Times Free Press in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Police were called to the 3200 block of Calhoun on report of an unknown trouble call just after 1 in the afternoon. The arriving officers found a female who said she'd been assaulted. She told authorities that she and the father of her children, they all were living together apparently, got into an argument that escalated when he began to kick, punch, and strangle her. Fearing for her life, she grabbed a firearm and shot the attacker in the arm. A police report the female showed visible signs of assault after he was shot, but before officers arrived, he drove himself to a local hospital where he received treatment for the gunshot wound to his arm. Officers arrived at the hospital. Police always show up. If you go to a hospital with a gunshot wound, they're obligated to tell somebody, no matter how good your story is about I accidentally shot myself in the back twice, they will call the police to investigate all gunshot wounds. Anyway, they arrived at the hospital. The 29-year-old suspect was taken into custody and booked into the local county jail. His charges and bond information were not available at the time I pulled the story. relationships fall apart. We all know that. Often one side or the other doesn't want to let go of the relationship. In this case, it was the male half. This is tough when your attacker is your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, but having the firearm again saved her at least from a severe beating or possibly even death. Having a firearm available very likely saved her life. I don't see any legal problems with it that we're aware of, and she was smart enough to have a gun. So,
Well, may have not been the first altercation. Wouldn't you agree?
Probably true. Probably true.
it's unlikely, yeah. Usually this is a pattern. They don't all of a
Yeah,
sudden
definitely.
decide to start beating on you.
But even if it was, when someone escalates to strangling, that is something that can go wrong really, really fast. And that kind of is an indication, I think, to the woman in this case that she needed to do something to secure her
Yeah.
The
life.
breakup was actually a good idea, and now
That's a felony, isn't it?
Oh.
Felony assault.
Yes, it can be. It can be.
yeah, we have strangling laws here in Nevada. I know in domestic cases, if there's strangling involved, there's an extra.
It's substantial bodily harm, a threat of a substantial bodily harm.
If you're planning a corporate event, we are here in Las Vegas. Please get a hold of Melissa at thegunstorelasvegas.com or go to our regular website. And we have lots of packages for corporate events and birthdays and weddings and all sorts of goofy things we do.
Yes.
This is the second of the ex-boyfriend stories.
Good boy.
This is a little more complex. KMOV TV in St. Louis, Missouri reported on the 11th, police took a report of an unnamed 44-year-old woman who's the victim of an assault in the 5,000 block of Granbury Way Lane at 9 p.m. or just before 9 p.m. on the 11th. The woman was walking with another 25-year-old woman back toward her residence when she was approached from behind by her ex-boyfriend. The boyfriend, the attacker, also 44 years old, punched the woman and grabbed her around the neck, demanding money. This is the ex-boyfriend. This is a domestic robbery for
It's a robbery.
lack
It's just,
of.
Yeah, it's a robbery.
They've broken up,
Yeah.
but anyway.
so
So now he
how that works.
wanted money.
Right?
Her friend attempted to intervene, but the police said she couldn't stop the suspect. So she ran to her residence, which they were right in front of. The women are next door neighbors. Contacted police, retrieved her firearm. She ran back out to the front where the altercation was, warned the suspect that she had contacted the police. The suspect let go of the victim and turned toward this helpful friend. Approached her in a threatening manner, the reports say. We'll leave that to your imagination.
Mhm.
The witness said she saw a holstered handgun on the suspect's hip. Believing she was in danger, she fired shots at the suspect, striking him in the forearm. It's a pattern here. Do you train women to shoot the guy in the arm?
I'm just saying, ladies, come and get training. The forearm is not where you aim.
Anyway, the suspect then fled from the scene. He was dropped off at an area hospital by somebody else where he's listed in stable condition. Here's the legal rub. The suspect is being investigated for a third-degree assault, while the witness shooter lady, the defending lady, is being investigated for first-degree assault because she used a firearm, and we're under Missouri law here where they're not looking this automatically as a self-defense case, apparently. She said he saw a gun. He didn't have one when he got to the hospital. Of course, he claims he didn't have a gun.
Okay.
He's beating up the woman. She draws her gun. While they're investigating, at least, she is being charged with a much more serious crime.
Potentially.
The guy resorts to robbery, which is stupid to begin with, and now the victim is charged with a greater crime than the attacker, which to me is even stupider.
But remember, these are charges that have been imposed by law enforcement without
Right.
having first gone through screening by a district attorney.
Right.
And once that happens, then defense attorneys will start getting in there as well to step up and say, hey, look, let's talk about why you really don't want to do what you want to do. There used to be a time in Clark County where in certain special cases, if you knew the head of the intake unit, you give him a call and say, look, I'd like to save everybody some embarrassment. Let's have a frank sit down and you can
Right.
talk about these things. And all of a sudden, there would be a much different charging decision or no charging decision at all. It would be kicked back, with no charges filed. So it just depends on the circumstances. Yes, robbery is a violent crime. Generally, you're okay using a certain level of force. Now, the rub is the force that a citizen uses, and you know this, Bob, versus the force that a law enforcement officer uses, and to be considered reasonable, is different.
Right.
And the amount of force you use from a fisticuffs threat when you escalate up to a gun is a much more difficult argument if you're a citizen than it is when you're a law enforcement officer.
Right.
And also, citizens don't get qualified immunity.
Correct.
And so there's a secondary sort of a catch, safe harbor for the law enforcement officer that citizens don't get. The rule of thumb generally when you're an attorney is you tell people think twice before you want to reach out and help somebody else, because you're going to impose different and varying kinds of liability, especially if you don't know your backstop and you hit somebody else or you injure somebody else while you're coming to the aid of a third party. And in this case, that's going to be her problem. I don't think she's going to have a problem with being charged criminally. I think she may have a problem if somebody else got hurt or something like that.
Yeah, if this went awry and she hit the wrong person,
Yeah.
she's
Right.
in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Homicide by misadventure.
Well, no, it's what we would call it here in Nevada negligent,
Negligent.
some sort of negligent discharge of a firearm. If they died, yes, negligent homicide. If they didn't die, battery of substantial bodily harm,
Mhm.
with a negligence theory of vicarious liability, something like that. So, I mean,
Bill used the term liability in there, that
Oh, yeah.
the police officer is immune from certain charges, and the difference really, to explain it, between a police officer and a civilian is if a police officer sees this woman being attacked, he's required to intervene. He cannot let a felony take place in his presence without doing something.
Mhm.
Because we require him to intervene, we give him a little extra protection if he makes a mistake, because it appears to be something that it isn't.
a lot of protection.
Yeah, the civilian, you're intervening because you chose to, not because the law required it. That's the difference. He has to respond to it.
Yep.
Whereas a policeman seeing this and went, not my problem, and walked away, would be charged with a crime for not intervening.
And there's mistake of fact, mistake of law issues that come into play that police officers get bigger benefits than citizens. If you have a mistake of fact going, say this is a play, and it wasn't really a robbery,
Right.
or something like that.
And that's happened.
Yes.
We've had officers jump in the middle of film
Yeah.
sets.
But when an officer does that, he's going to get a much larger protection versus a citizen when they do that, is the point.
Yes. Now we've done 2 women victims shooting somebody in the arm. So I want to remind everybody, we offer a lady self-defense and personal safety class.
Shoots in her mask.
Right.
Yeah, taught by the aforementioned Maggie. Our next one is Thursday, January 14. For information on that, you can sign up on our website or find us at thegunstorelasvegas.com and hook you up, and it'll give you all the stuff you need to know for the class and how to sign up and so forth. We can handle
It's a great class.
12 or 14 in it.
And
Usually.
12 is usually the perfect number for us. We get them on the range, and the fee also includes ammunition and a firearm and targets and eye and ear protection. It's a great class. So many ladies, they leave so empowered and excited, and they just really feel, it's like they show up kind of scared, but then they leave so empowered and ready to move on to the next step.
Getting the information is so helpful to your well-being and confidence. And I know 2 women right here who should take it. I'm going to get a hold of them and see if we can get them down here.
Exactly.
Fox 10 in Surprise, Arizona. That's in Maricopa County on the 10th. This is another dog thing. I'm seem to be doing a dog story every week, and it comes up so often. Investigations underway following a confrontation between 2 people and their dogs on Thursday night on West Cottonwood Street. Police say when officers arrived at the scene, they found a 56-year-old resident had shot and killed a dog when it attacked his dog. The Surprise Police Department, that's hard to say. The Surprise Police Department spokesman said a 6-year-old boy was walking the other dog on a leash when it attacked the resident's dog. It's not known in the reports whether the resident's dog was leashed also, but the kid has a dog on a leash. It turns out it was a brindle pit bull, 55 pounds. The owner, the resident's dog was an Akita that weighed about 30 pounds. Anyway, the larger dog attacked the smaller dog. The owner feared that it was going to get killed, so he pulled out a handgun he was carrying. He was a concealed weapon permittee. He killed the dog, the deceased dog. Again, it was a pit bull at 55 pounds. The resident's dog at the time of the incident was a brown and white Akita, about 30 pounds. The investigation is ongoing. Dog cases are always more emotional than people
Human
cases. It's just, can you legally shoot a threat to protect your pets? The legal answer is clearly yes. Now, this is where I back off and will tell people that I think a warning shot would be appropriate. I mean, dogs don't always get it, but the loud noise, they're outdoors, putting one in the dirt. There's no law enforcement agency, as far as I know, in the entire world that teaches people to use warning shots or their officers to use warning shots, because they're all afraid of where the bullet's going. In this case, there was a chance it would scare the other dog away or get him to, he may pay no attention to it. You know, if the dog doesn't know what gunshots are, it's just a loud noise. It may frighten him, it may not.
Yeah.
These always end poorly because the owners of the dogs are always at odds with each other over the events. And
these always end poorly because PETA shows up, or some of these national dog organizations show up. You know, under the law, dogs are property.
They are, yeah.
And the compensation for putting down someone else's dog, which is property, is not that much, you know. But of course, we all know that people love the dog and they were part of the family. But that's how the law recognizes it. And yes, you know, using a firearm in an instance to put down a dog that's you know, injuring your dog, yeah, it's allowable. I'd say it's something I would not advise someone to do.
Was attacking your child,
Yeah,
certainly there's no
absolutely.
question.
Yes.
That's,
Absolutely.
this
But,
is,
yeah, I wouldn't advise somebody to do it, but you never know. You know, if they did it, I would defend them. I think you would have a clear ability to make sure that they didn't experience any liability. Now, the public relations liability, you're going to have to call a marketing company for that, because it's going to be bad.
is immense.
Right.
When I was bailiffing for years in Boulder City, we had a couple of dog cases where somebody shot a dog justifiably, one clearly not justifiably, and it was the worst courtroom we ever had. With people wanting to come in with placards and yell and scream and whatever, and keeping order was
T-shirts.
you know, threat of arrest if you don't leave the courtroom, with lots of them. And where, you know, the week before we'd had a rape attempt murder and we didn't have any protesters going.
No placards. Nobody with T-shirts.
It was, you know.
Well, being a dog owner myself, I actually own a security dog. I have a Belgian Malinois. She's a female security dog, and her name's Glory, but she's an amazing dog. If anybody tries to come towards me or attack me, they basically get a big giant bite from my alligator. And you know, when it comes to these dogs, by the way, I know these dogs, these Akitas and the pit bulls. You know, pit bulls, people always peg them as like horrible dogs. I've met some of the nicest pit bull dogs, and I've met some of the meanest Akita dogs. I actually own an Akita dog.
You're listening to the arguments that happen in this case.
So, yeah, I mean, the Akita dogs, just so you know, they're very protective of their owners. And I had an Akita dog of me. And so, yeah, I mean,
I've seen
I would
Maggie
keep up with
shoot.
this case.
Her dog would be the least of your
But
problems.
this is
if
a
you
heated
had
dog
that.
in Arizona, so
In
it
Arizona.
was just hot
It was
because it had so
hot.
much fur.
We are now being
Irritable.
They do.
all right. It's dogs.
It's dogs. We can talk about dogs. Forget the
Warning
people.
shots, pepper spray works sometimes. You know,
I agree.
try and
Pepper spray,
avoid it.
yes.
These are really cases that never ever go away. If you check out a website called firearms.net, Fired Up is now featured on there, and we're broadcasting to their 3,000 or so viewers while we're doing this, which is nice. Firearms.net. You can find us. If you can't find us, 4 or 5 other places. We seem to be heading everywhere. WBTV3 in Cornelius, North Carolina on the 10th. Police are investigating an incident that happened just before 7 p.m. at a Citgo gas station on Catawba Avenue. Police say a male subject walked up behind a person who was pumping gas and demanded money. The robber pointed a small handgun and then punched the would-be victim in the face and in the stomach. The victim screamed for help. A bystander intervened by firing at the man attempting the robbery. That third person, who was armed with a handgun, fired 1 shot at the robber, who then fled the area on foot. Police are unsure if the would-be robber was struck. The suspect was described as a, this is easy to find, described as a male in his mid-20s, between 5'9" and 6 foot, wearing a black jacket, white shirt, dark shorts, black shoes, and black backpack. Great. Anyway, he got away. They didn't find him. They looked for him in the nearby woods with dogs and things, and he's gone. And they don't believe he was hit because there was no blood trail or anything there. The firearm carrier probably saved the robbery victim's life. Good. That being said, intervening in one of these where you don't know the players is really dicey. The bad guy apparently wasn't hit. That's probably the best thing that could happen with the shooter involved, that he wasn't hit. Otherwise, he could be facing some serious legal issues, lawsuits certainly, because here it comes with, you know, my son had a toy gun and nobody was really in danger, just looked like, and so forth. Again, this is where a policeman would be immune from that. Perhaps it was actually a warning shot, which made the robber run away. If I was his lawyer, I might suggest maybe it was a warning shot. Think about this really hard. You weren't really trying to shoot him. Discussion on warning shots. I may be the only advocate in the room who says
Never.
They're appropriate sometimes.
Never.
It's just all it does is it increases.
I'm with him.
It just increases an opportunity for a bad thing happening. So,
Okay.
so don't push it down the barrel, and you won't
We'll
have
be
to worry
back
about it.
next week with 2 new guests.
I'm all about de-escalation.
Yeah.
Last resort is a firearm.
I think what should have happened is this guy should have grabbed his cell phone. He should have communicated. He should have watched. He could have surveilled. He could have directed the police in.
Instead of just firing.
And believe me, when that guy started hearing the sirens coming, he's going to book it. And, 99 times out of 100. Yeah, or you even scream.
I called the police.
Yeah, from a position of strength behind cover with a gun in your hand.
That usually is that's what we recommend. And this is why there's a little dicey when you get involved with this. You're not really sure of what's happening. You're not really, it's 9 o'clock or 7 p.m. at night. It's dark. And are you really sure he had a gun?
The cops have all the equipment. They have all the tools. They have the helicopters. They have the dogs. They have everything.
Unless you see the guy actually being injured,
oh yeah,
you really may want to just look at all the other options, including just yelling, "I called the police."
Right.
I have a gun. I got your picture on my cell phone, whatever, and I threw my cell phone on the roof so you can't get it.
And then also, police here, there's someone with a gun on site. That's going to make them come even faster.
Yeah, if you want the cops to get there quick, say, "I'm going to shoot somebody right now."
I'm going to shoot somebody. You better get here.
We do, anyway, you can ask questions and comments and comment on these two saying never any warning shots. To Bob at firedupmail.com.
Visiting me in jail if I do that.
We do offer free concealed carry permit classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. We are really jammed with the late terrorist stuff at the moment, but you can sign up on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. We hold about 50 people. It's a little packed in there, but we get most everybody in. So look on our website and take advantage of the training. We charge you for the ammunition, and we charge you $10 to fill out all the paperwork for you, and that's it. So the class is basically free. Please do that. Good idea. This is a discussable one too. WBR TV and a lot of other media on the 4th, this is 2 weeks old now, follow up on a shooting from May 10th. The Knox County District Attorney's Office will not file charges in a shooting death that occurred during a burglary. Police responded at 2:40 a.m. to reports of shots fired on Lawson Avenue in North Knoxville. The resident shot a 41-year-old car burglar after he saw him breaking into his SUV. The neighbor found a blood trail. Leading to the back of the house, behind a nearby house. The officers arriving followed the blood trail in the bushes, found the guy with gunshot wounds. He died 2 weeks later at the University of Tennessee Medical Center of his wounds, which is important that we address that. The police said the suspect was attempting to break into a vehicle when he was interrupted by the armed 37-year-old resident. Keep in mind, this is 2:40 a.m. in the morning. The Knox County prosecutor said, after a thorough investigation, we are unable to rebut the claim of self-defense. The suspect was caught committing a burglary and threatened to shoot the resident and his family. The resident stated he feared for his life and the lives of his family members. The prosecutor added that under the state self-defense statute, use of force against another is justified when a person has reasonable belief there is imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm. The suspect's local criminal history was lengthy: convictions for aggravated robbery, felony theft, burglary, assault, carrying a weapon on school grounds, and coercion of a witness. What isn't in the story, and the prosecutor could not confirm, was that the suspect was actually armed, and there's nobody to talk to that heard the guy say, I'm going to take your stuff or I'm going to kill you and your family. So the investigators, the guy who wins the battle writes the history books. There were no other witnesses to what was said. 2 in the morning. So the prosecutor says we have to accept his story that he reasonably believed his family was endangered.
It's not about accepting the story. It's about the evidentiary weight. Okay. And after the Duke lacrosse team issues, prosecutors became a little more forthcoming in their analyses of cases for purposes of intake. They got a little more in depth with them, and they did a little more weighing in accordance with the rules of evidence, as opposed to, what can we prove versus what we think we can't prove. They have an ethical obligation not to break charges if they don't believe that they can prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt.
How would you? There's no other witnesses. There's nothing.
Yeah, but you have to understand that they charge with probable cause. Okay, but if they're thinking down the line and they've got a sufficient amount of information, if they don't believe that they can meet their burden based upon beyond a reasonable doubt standard, then they're not going to bring the charges. And so that's why when I see in this little thing here that the quotation marks after we are unable to rebut a claim, that is a term of art.
That's why I put that in quotes. That's exactly what he said. And it makes you think, well, maybe
they didn't like the shooter.
They don't like the shooter. They don't like the case, but they can't make their case. And you can bet they've tried.
The guy dodged the bullet. Let's put it that way. The homeowner dodged the bullet.
Yeah, he really did.
It's
because I envisioned a different version, which could have been he saw somebody breaking into his truck. He pulled out his gun. He didn't say anything. He plugged the guy a few times. And then he thought about it after he did it. The guy ran off, and he's like, yeah, the guy said he was going to threaten my family. Yeah, that's it. That's what happened. Officer.
Yeah, it sounds like a guy who would talk to his attorney before he got interviewed.
Well, no.
Should talk to an attorney, not to help you make up a good story, but to understand how things unfold and what you want to say or don't want to say during the initial interview when you're all wound up. You need, when you talk to authorities, when you speak in court, you need to tell the truth. If you're caught lying, you lost. I mean, Bill's defended clients. I've had clients that they lied, and it was so obviously they're lying, and you can't go to a jury and say, my client only lied about this part. He's not lying about that part. You lose your credibility, you're going to lose the case. So you got to tell the truth, but filter it through advice as to how to present it. I tend to agree with Bill that they would really like to get this guy on something, but they didn't, because there's no evidence there that they can convince a jury. If you were on the jury and you really didn't like this guy, are you still going to say, is it reasonable that he might not have done this? And you're going to say, yeah. I mean, you have to. So we have our own wedding chapel here at the gun store. If you, there's a continuation here. If you want to do a wedding or vow renewals, we have a whole thing can be arranged. We had one last Saturday with 40 people here. It was amazing. Go to thegunstorelasvegas.com and click on special events. There's a whole rigmarole thing there, which will get you set up for that. And we do all sorts of neat weddings. They're just really hysterical to watch. The one Saturday was a very formal wedding, and the bride had a very ornate wedding dress made of camouflage material.
Nice.
Really? We've got pictures somewhere.
My kind of wedding. Hey, vow renewals would be great for husband and wife firearms instructors.
Was your husband here somewhere?
He's somewhere around here.
Yes, well, and we'll invite all of you listeners.
Yes.
We do that.
YouTube it.
So, KOCO TV, Oklahoma City. This is on the 10th. Police say a home invasion suspect was shot by a homeowner about 1:30 a.m. At least two suspects tried to break into the home on Stonewood Drive. One suspect was a local 20-year-old who was shot by the homeowner. Officers said the homeowner was also shot. The wounded suspect was arrested in complaints of first-degree burglary and assault with a deadly weapon. Both he and the resident were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Neither one of them had good training, obviously. No other arrests have been made. The police are looking for two other people in connection with the home invasion. The reason this one's in here, it's a good shoot. He's confronting an intruder and so forth. But as Bill mentioned earlier in another case, the bad guy runs about 95% of the time when he's warned off. That's 1 out of 20. That's the national average. When you warn the guy, I've got a gun, get out of my house, something, they run. This is the one that didn't. He stayed, and when he heard the warning, he fired. The trick here is that when you get to this 1 in 20 thing is where your training comes in and you make your challenge from cover. Not standing in the middle of the room toe to toe with the guy saying, I got a gun. You are behind the corner. I'm sure you get this in all your classes.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
The way you win gunfights is don't get hit. So first, don't get hit. Then you're at least even.
Yeah, evade and barricade.
Around the corner,
respond
or
if
yell
necessary.
from the next room. Don't yell where if he fires at your voice, the bullet's going to find you. Safe position, and you can look at that sometimes ahead of time, the way your house is laid out, where it's where you've got something to hide behind. Even a wall that's in modern construction, at the corners, you got a bunch of studs in there, and it's likely to stop or really deflect a pistol round coming in. Even though they do go through walls, but not through a whole lot of studs. So you're in good shape. Look around and pick out in advance where you could be hiding.
Oh yeah.
Don't hide behind your mattress.
No.
That only works in the movies. Where you tip the table over and hide behind the table? Don't do that. Bullets go through tables.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got to be a really heavy table.
If you can tip it over, it won't
not going to work. It's not
going to work. But use your warnings from a safe position if you can. That'll save you a lot of problems. And these guys have been through that same thing.
Oh, yeah.
We all know people who have stood on their hind legs in the middle of the room and gone, drop the gun. And the guy went, no, bang. And then you go, why am I standing out here? There's a hole in me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
covered. We are starting here at the gun store. We have a little boutique marketing program we're working on. We're looking for a few partners with some capital between $10,000 and $20,000 to do a little goofy thing with boutique gun sales. If you're interested, you can send a note to that same bob@firedupmail.com, and we'll explain to you what we think we're doing.
What's a boutique gun sale? What's a boutique gun?
Well, it's a marketing
Oh, okay.
thing for firearms that we're doing. It's really kind of cute, and I think I'll make a lot of money. But
I'll send it.
I'll look into that.
Okay, this is
It's a secret.
the one I don't want to do. KRCA TV News, Stockton, California, on the 7th of December. California Highway Patrol officer's gun was used by a 3-year-old in a shooting that injured his 15-year-old brother. Police confirmed they're investigating. The Stockton police is investigating it because it's a Highway Patrol guy. The brothers were playing hide and seek Saturday when the 3-year-old found a gun while hiding in a closet. The teenager was shot in the foot and treated for non-life-threatening injuries at a local hospital. He will make a full recovery. The child's parents were not at home at the time of the shooting. The Stockton police spokesman obviously said all guns should have been locked up or in a gun safe. The Stockton Police Department's doing the investigation, as I said. The results could have been obviously terribly tragic.
It would have been terrible.
The police will forward the case to the district attorney's office in the county, and the DA will decide whether or not to file charges. Unlocked guns with kids, little kids, are an accident waiting to happen. We've had a number of them here in Las Vegas. A couple of very recently, and then this one, the other one, this was a Glock with a real light trigger, of course. And these happen way too often. You have to lock up your guns when you're not home, always.
Always.
Kids find them. They don't know the difference between real and fake. Fortunately, at 3, all he could do was point it sort of outward, so he hit his brother in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
We do offer at the gun store the NRA's Eddie Eagle program for kids' gun safety. And it is a class designed for ages 5 to 11. It's second Friday of each month. Again, you can sign up on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. We generally get 8 to 10 kids in the class. It is not a gun class. It's a don't touch the gun class. And you teach the same class.
I do. Stop,
And
don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult.
We teach little kids, they do a little dance and do stop, don't touch, back, leave the area, and they pretend they're running a little song they learn. And all that sort of thing to keep them, if they find a gun, to keep them from picking it up. And it does work. We have discovered if you got little kids at home and you're dumb enough to leave your gun unlocked, or you're going to forget sooner or later anyway and leave it unlocked, this is kind of your second line of defense. Bring the kids over. The class is like 35 minutes. I mean, because the attention span.
Right.
With little kids, they learn a song, and there are no guns in the class. We don't show them guns. Give them coloring books. They don't have guns, and they learn a little song and so forth.
And they also have the little contract in the back that they promise to their parents that if they do see a gun, that they won't touch it.
Yeah, and they'll tell an adult, a responsible adult,
Exactly.
that they saw a gun. This is some other gun news. The BBC reported, as did everybody else. We lost one at the U.S. Supreme Court 2 weeks ago. Some gun owners were challenging an Illinois city, a city of Highland Park. It's part of Chicago suburb. Passed a law banning semi-automatic weapons and large capacity magazines in 2013. The appellate court held the case valid, that it wasn't a violation of Second Amendment or so forth. In the federal appeals court, it went to the Supreme Court. They refused to hear it. That leaves in place the lower court decision that allows local governments leeway in regulating high-powered weapons, as the article says. The decision came just days after the mass shooting in San Bernardino in Colorado. The federal appeals appeals court upheld the law in a ruling that was challenged by the Illinois Gun Owners Association and several other groups, NRA and whatever. By not hearing the case, that lets, now there's four now lower courts that have all held the same thing.
Yeah.
That
it's not necessarily, okay. The United States Supreme Court does not have to hear an appeal. It's called a writ of certiorari. And when you file one, there's a whole process where they go through and they decide which ones they're going to accept. And the amount of cases that they accept is minuscule compared to the amount of the cases that are submitted. It is not dispositive of any sort of attitude by the United States Supreme Court that they refuse to take this case. This case probably fell into some level of that reasonable regulation comment that they've made and upholding the Second Amendment, that they felt that this was at least how it was crafted in this specific case was a reasonable form of regulation. We don't even want to stick our nose into it, and they're not going to stick their nose in it. Doesn't mean that they're not going to pick up a juicier case with better facts that'll do what they kind of want to do with the Second Amendment.
Right, I understand. There were two stinging rebuttals of this not hearing the case. And, you know, the first thing they told us in police academies, you look at a case that decided this, and then it says, and the dissenting opinion was, don't bother to read it. It doesn't matter. What matters is the first opinion. The second opinion that failed is interesting, but it has nothing to do with the law. So, you know, it is of use to lawyers trying to fight the same case again, but they held now they can regulate guns. So they can outlaw assault weapons, they can outlaw high capacity magazines, standard capacity magazines, because they're not outlawing a whole class of guns or a whole class of people. They don't consider AR-15s to be a class of guns, apparently.
And I don't know what the law says. I don't know what it says.
We don't know what their law exactly says. So we're there. There are going to be other cases, but this was a great day for Bloomberg and his anti-gun crap. If you would like to reverse this, vote. We're having an election coming up. And we're actually taping the show an hour early because I'm going over to the debate over here later on, and I got to get there on time.
Yes.
You know, be very quiet and not yell. We're promoting American Printing. It's a company downtown, 1512 Fremont Street. They do print our books and pamphlets and things. Great work, great prices. I'll give you the phone number, etc. But you can remember American Printing. They're at 1500 Fremont downtown, family owned, great people. Go down there and get your printing work done. You'll be happy with the result. This week, we had a review journal report. I don't want to get too much into this because this is still going to be, there's some adjudication still to go on. A local 7-Eleven clerk was sentenced to prison today for shooting a guy who stole a case or 2 cases of beer, ran out the door. The 56-year-old clerk was convicted today of battery with a deadly weapon. Fortunately, not the original charge of attempted murder, which would have been a lot worse. I think he got 4 to 6 years or something like that. I didn't remember what the was.
I'll defer to your judgment.
The point of this case was that a guy stole some beer and ran. The clerk went after him with his .45 caliber pistol and shot him through the back of the head. The bullet came out through the guy's teeth. Horrible wounds.
It's terrible.
A fleeing beer skip.
Yes.
Over beer.
And then, of course, as Bill knows with criminal defense, it turns out the gun the clerk had was stolen. And so he got an extra couple of years there for shooting him with a stolen gun. But we don't have registration anymore, so he didn't get charged with that.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect.
Don't learn from television that you can shoot at fleeing people who steal beer. And I don't care if it was a whole case of beer. You know, it might as well have been no beer. I mean, you can't kill people fleeing because they stole property. Unless you're in Texas. This is not a Texas case. This is our case, Las Vegas, Nevada. Do not shoot at fleeing people. This guy is going to go to prison. for a while. No threat to life. There's no point where you can go and say, my life was in danger, so I had to fire my gun. Somebody else was in danger.
No.
Nobody's in danger. In fact, he endangered the beer by firing at the guy. He could have hit the beer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
You know, I mean, it's stuff. I can relate to being in that position of guarding stuff that didn't have to shoot somebody over stuff.
this is why. You wonder why convenience stores almost universally don't allow their employees to be armed.
Oh, yeah.
It's because of this kind of stupid stuff. Is this, I don't know which chain it was, 7-Eleven it says here. So I'm not sure that was what the news said. They call everything a 7-Eleven. But
A lot of them are independently owned.
are they, are they liable for their clerk's action? You know, so
Absolutely.
here
And they
comes
have
the
a,
lawsuit.
they have a big insurance policy, and the insurance company will write a check. And so you're going
If
to have
there's a guy with no front teeth comes into your office looking for a lawyer,
permanent disability.
you got a good case here.
Absolutely.
And he does, and I'm not trying to defend.
Because there's no
the
defendable
thief,
standard.
but
Yeah.
you can't risk people's lives before stealing beer. And this is just,
It's not worth it.
this is the stupid case of the week. Don't do this. Anyway, too much television, too little time. Oh, good. We're going to finish right on time. New York Times poll released 12/11 found the majority of Americans oppose banning assault weapons. Did you catch that? The poll conducted, this is New York Times, who hates guns. They did a poll of 1,275 adults between December 4 and December 8 and found 50% now oppose a nationwide ban on assault weapons. This is good.
It is. I
For
read that
us.
today. Yeah.
And 44% favor such a ban. That's bad. But this is what was Bloomberg doing the polling here, waiting, hoping for more ammunition.
Yeah.
And what he discovered, more people oppose the ban on the assault weapons than support it. Yay! Somebody talked to real people out there.
That's right.
But Bob, doesn't it champ your behind that the game isn't played with, what's an assault weapon? And an assault weapon that you and I know, and especially you know, what we know what an assault weapon is. An assault weapon is not a semi-automatic rifle in any form.
There's all
No matter what you attach to it.
terminology crap.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. All the terms, they play this shell game with the terms. And so when I read something like that, it just frustrates me, because an assault weapon is not an AR-15. It never will be. It's not an AK-47.
But
It's not
this
any of
is-
that stuff.
This is
full auto.
1,200 regular people who think an assault weapon is full automatic. And they said we should keep them here.
Exactly.
I
That's
see.
the bonus.
So you're
That's
going to play
even
games
better.
So you're going to play
That's the
games
bonus.
with the definitions.
I
too.
could play with it
Okay.
too. I'm watching even Fox News. I watched a guy just chew up this issue and having no idea what an assault weapon is. So how can
None.
people have machine guns? Well, we're talking about the San Bernardino shooters with assault weapons. They were not full automatic. They were semi-automatic. They were assault weapons under California's definition. The real definition of assault weapon is that it will fire full automatic, more than one shot when you pull the trigger, if you don't let go of the trigger.
Exactly.
We are going to be at 2 gun shows next week. The Crossroads of the West show is December 19 and 20, Saturday and Sunday at Cashman Field downtown. The competing show on the same weekend is the Rocky Mountain Gun Show, which is at South Point 3 days. It's on 18, 19, and 20. It's on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I will point out that Rocky Mountain has free parking. I will point out Cashman Field has usually more vendors, and it's longer lines to get in. Rocky Mountain I like because you can park in the parking garage and take the elevator, and you're never out in the sun and walking 3 miles to your car and all that. Both of these vendors put on great shows. They are, no other way to say it, they're in conflict with each other. They're both running on the same day before Christmas, trying to destroy the other guy, and they're going to end up destroying each other doing this. I'm sorry that this is happening. These are both fine shows. We're going to be at both of them, support with our brass for sale and so forth. And we're going to, try and get an attorney down now and again. We try and get an attorney there on Saturday if you're not doing anything Saturday.
I'll be at the
Around
Rocky
noon
Mountain Gun
to-
Show.
Okay.
to sit there and answer questions that you don't want to put on an email, which we get a lot of. Want to point out the Big Short is opening for Christmas, December 23rd. Unfortunately, we discovered it's not here December 23rd. It's opening at the nearest theater. It said on my chart was in Hollywood, California,
Oh,
because they have to open there to qualify for the Academy Awards.
oh, there you
It's not going to open here until after because of the space movie
go.
coming out that is going to blow everybody off of the media theater stuff. We will be back next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Until 6 p.m. right here. We're on 1400 AM radio KSHP. And here on YouTube, again, questions or comments, please do write in to the Fired Up, Bob at firedupmail.com. And especially if you have a really serious opinion on warning shots, I need some more ammunition here,
To
folks.
bolster your.
If you fired one and it saved your life, let me know so
Bolster
I
your
can
very limited
use it.
anecdote.
Yes.
Your very limited occurrence anecdote.
You have to know where the bullet's going. Firing randomly into the air is not the way to do it. Know where the bullet's going. And, this is kind of like shooting the tires off of cars when they're driving away and you go hit one through the back window and kill the guy. Don't fire at moving vehicles, driving away, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just don't want to say never, never, never fire a warning shot. And I keep picturing you've got a 12-year-old with a pocket knife charging you because he thinks you murdered his mother, and you're the wrong guy, and you're yelling at him. Maybe putting one in the dirt between his little feet will save you shooting a child. I realize it's a rare circumstance, really rare, but I just hate saying never. I've looked at too many gunfights to go never do this.
Fair enough.
It's 5 o'clock straight up. It's supposed to be 6 o'clock when you're seeing this. It's 5 o'clock for us because I got to go listen to the debate over here in Las Vegas. We are having a presidential debate tonight here in Las Vegas, and we were invited to that, my wife and I, so we're going to be over there
Awesome.
where you guys can't go.
Awesome.
Can you submit questions?
No,
No.
not allowed to talk. Secret
Nothing.
Service, no guns. I mean,
Huh,
Oh, of course not.
I got to disarm myself and depend on the Secret Service to save my life.
exactly.
Have you seen their
It's nice
work
knowing
lately?
you.
Now stop.
Thanks for watching Fired Up, Bill. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Maggie,
you.
once again, thank you. We
Thank
will
you.
see you all next week. Thanks for watching Fired Up.